Welcome back to the dojo, everybody. This is TruTalk with TruMotion, where a couple of guys talk about how to make the world a better place and hopefully make your day a little bit better in the process. My name is Mark, followed by my co-host Stephen. Let's get things kicked off. Well, first off, we've got a very, very special guest in the dojo today. Our first non-karate related person who's very, very close to my heart in this instance. I've known this man for about, I don't even want to say about 30 years.
How old are you now?
42.
About 30 years.
30 years.
Wow.
He's been a huge impact in my life, both on and off the court when I was playing basketball. I'd like to introduce Coach John Scott. John, actually, I don't even say that. I'm just going to call you Coach. That felt weird. Coach.
I don't want to have you do push-ups.
Exactly. I was like, I don't want to do push-ups either. Coach, kind of give us a little bit of a history about yourself. Like, you know, like what did you live here? Did you come from Utah, or did you come from out of, somewhere else?
No, I came from my mom and dad.
Oh, no, that's good
but
too.
I grew up in Boston. My first varsity game as a high school basketball player as a sophomore was on the parquet floor in Boston Garden.
Really?
Scored my first varsity point on the parquet floor.
Dang. Okay.
And that's where all my dreams were born. And so I grew up in Boston, played small college basketball, played professionally in 3 countries, tried out with the Knicks and the Cavaliers. I've done player development with the Milwaukee Bucks. I've been a college coach 3 times, and I've been a head high school coach twice with over 100 career wins. And now what I do is I have a group of current and former college coaches that work under my umbrella, and we help athletes in 45 different sports get recruited to college.
45.
45 different sports. We had 2 bowlers from Hawaii 3 years ago get 86 and 92% funding.
Bowling.
We've done rifle, we've done rodeo.
Wow.
You name it.
That's awesome. And honestly, with the way
And we got martial arts
tuition's...
too.
Seriously?
Yep.
I did not know that. You can get martial arts scholarships.
Well, there's a misconception because everybody thinks everything is athletic.
Okay.
So there's about 1 million athletes playing playing college sports this next year.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 1 million athletes. Out of that million, only 2% are going to get a fully funded 100% athletic scholarship.
That makes sense.
So you're talking about maybe 20,000 kids out of 1 million.
And you're usually thinking like your major sports, like your basketball, football.
It's pretty much football and basketball. And the way that you can validate that, people think I'm probably lying when I say that. The way you can validate that is from August to April, you see 30 games of Division I football, Division I basketball on TV. That's where all the money is.
Yes.
So you can ask Caitlin Clark that. She's a millionaire, and she hasn't even, before she signed her WNBA contract. She'll make less in the WNBA than she will from endorsements.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is another topic,
No, I agree. I
the
completely
NIL,
agree.
the name, image, and likeness.
Speaking of which, how do you feel about that? Like,
at first, when they were talking about it, I was not excited about it, having been a college coach and being a college player. But actually, I think it's a great thing now. The biggest setback for it is that it's not going to distribute the wealth. It is going to help the better athletes, the more popular athletes. But that's true of everything in our society.
Exactly.
So they do deserve it. They pay the price. They deserve it. They've been there. I got benefits and things when I was playing professionally overseas. I got a car. I got an apartment. I was making money tax-free. I didn't have to do anything other than work out and
Sounds
go
like
do
life.
basketball clinics with kids. And that was one of the best times of my life, know. So I'm happy for them. The biggest downfall to it is I think they are very unprepared in how to handle it. So I think Deion Sanders' kid was one of the top 5 NIL money makers this year. Mm-hmm. But they got to turn around and they got to pay, let's just say he generates $4 or $5 million. They got to turn around and pay $2.5 million in taxes, and I think they go out and spend it all before they know, and then they got a big bill in their pocket.
I agree. I think it should be a requirement. If you're going to be a collegiate athlete, you need to take some sort of financial literacy classes. They're not being taught how to manage their wealth.
No,
And
not at all.
It's very sad because how many stories do we hear about where you have this multi-million-dollar athlete 2 years out of the league, he's homeless and broke because he's got no money.
Well, and it's not just about taking a class, unfortunately, because when I was doing player development with the Milwaukee Bucks when George Karl was there, In fact, I'm going next week to Tennessee to see my old pro coach that was an assistant there,
Really?
Gerald Oliver.
Okay.
And, you know, he's older. He's on his last legs. He's got diabetes. He's on dialysis.
Yeah.
But I want to see him. I was just talking to him this morning. And you'd appreciate this, Mark, but he calls me Ironhead.
Ironhead?
He says I'm the most stubborn player he ever met.
Wow.
I'd like to shake his hand. I'd be like, I was telling Stephen stories. I go, man, this guy, he will love you to death, but if you're on the opposite team of him, you better get the hell out of the way. He'll run you over.
Used to play that same way.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
used
you
to play
did.
that same way. In fact, do you know who Jim Caviezel is?
Yes.
The actor? Mm-hmm. Right.
We
played
went
Christ.
to Sundance together with him, remember?
Right. Passion of the Christ.
Yep.
Anyway, he and I talk regularly, and he's still, I groomed him, and he ended up making the team at University of Washington. And I kind of told him, because he was doing these imitations and, you know, imitating people, presidents, everything. I said, man, you need to be an actor. And so he's an actor. And he was a good basketball player. I think he holds the record for most points scored in a 15-second sequence.
Really? Okay.
17 points.
Oh.
I remember that whole evening. It's kind of a blur, but it's also not kind of a blur. Is me and Jason Doris.
Jason,
It's me and Jason Doris. Okay, Jason's a little bit taller than me. He's like 6'4".
6'5".
Yeah, he's a tall
I
kid.
remember.
And we had these bright royal blue basketball jackets on from our high school, okay? And we're in our jackets and just slacks. And he took us to the claim jumper. And standing room only. So obviously,
Because it was during the film festival.
it was during the film, it was
Right.
during Sundance. It was like right in the heart of it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's at night. I have no idea where anything is. Neither does Jason. We're just kind of standing there, just like, I don't even know what to do. So you're in the booth with Jim, and there's no other room. So it's like, dude, we're young. We'll stand. Like, no problem. We'll stand. And Jason and I are basically standing in front of this table. It looks like we're running security because we're a foot taller than everybody in that place. And all of a sudden, this guy runs into me and he goes, "Hey, man, watch it." And I go, "I'm just standing here, dude." He's like, "Well, get off my coat." And I was like, "Again, I'm just standing here, bro. Like, what do you want?" And he's like to my mid arm, okay? Mm-hmm. It was Jeremy Pivens, from the guy from Entourage.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, like it was the attorney from Entourage. And I was like, "What do you want, man? Like, it's standing room only. Like, you go away. I'm not going anywhere. This is my table." It's like, "I need to get in there and say hi." And I was like, "Well, by all means, like, dude, get away from me." And he was tiny, this big old attitude.
Yeah, most actors are not that big.
No,
I think
they're-
Tom Cruise is 5'6".
Yes,
5'6".
he's notoriously sore about his height.
Oh, what's he sore about? He's got the whole world
Oh, yeah. He's
by his nostrils. Are you kidding?
pretty much. But, yeah, no, I getting back to these college kids earning money, I was kind of with you at first. I was like, dude, I don't know if it's a good idea. Like, you're going to be given, like, well, if they're going to make it anyways, they should get paid for their likeness. It's like these universities are benefiting how much off of them?
It's ridiculous.
It's like they should get a little kickback.
Yeah, at first I thought they were getting plenty because they were getting an education. Mm-hmm. But then as things went on, I looked at things closer, recognized what we deal with all the time. Mm-hmm. How most college coaches will help kids get money for college is, so if you come to me, Mark, and you say, "I need $1 for college." I said, "You want a dollar bill, 4 quarters, 10 nickels, or 20 dimes?" You don't really care, right? Mm-hmm. Or 20 nickels, 10 dimes. You don't care.
No, you're just like, I need
This is how college coaches get you money. So academic, merit, diversity, special needs, maybe some athletic. But if I've got a kid that I can get a full academic, I'm not giving him a penny of athletic money because I can make my team better. Mm-hmm. And I remember we had a kid from West Jordan High School we worked with a few years ago, Cody Einings, football player. You know, average size football player. He was like 5'9", 170 pounds at best, right? Maybe 160 pounds. And Willamette University in Salem, Oregon, Division III, cost $50,000 a year for tuition. Offered him $25,000, academic.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. But his parents came back and said, "Coach Scott, we can't close this gap. How do we close this gap?" So we took him through a funding discovery interview where you ask questions about 25 or 30 different types of scholarships that might be available our funding avenues. You go to the financial aid officer, you go to the head coach, so they can't collaborate with each other. You get
Okay.
different answers. He came back with another $15,000 a year in what was called a special needs scholarship. Now, Cody had no physical or learning disabilities, but their special need at Division III, where they don't offer athletic money, was they needed a defensive back, so they called it special needs money.
That's funny.
That's a true story.
That's
so
really funny.
We're good at helping people find money all the time.
That needs to be, because there's so many good not even, I don't even want to call them athletes, but they are athletes. Just good people that would benefit so much from going to school that they just can't afford it, and they don't want to go into student debt for the rest of their life. And,
Right.
because I have this discussion with a lot of these upcoming seniors. I very much have a love-hate relationship with college. I think education is super important, but my goodness, is like the amount of tuition you're paying going to benefit you in the long run? And it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, well, what are you going to school for?
Right.
And is this career viable for paying your tuition back? And
Well, you bring up a really interesting point because, now the Ivy Leagues have pushed over 90,000, 100 grand a year for tuition, some of them, which is insane.
it's ridiculous.
So you have to ask yourself, is getting the degree from the Ivy League going to get me that money? Well, if you go to a New York law firm, some rare situations, probably.
Maybe.
But the reality is that when people, because I've hired a lot of people in my business, I don't look at the college they came from. I look at if they have a degree. And there are a lot of four-year colleges and universities that are more remote, that because they're more remote, they will not charge as much because people don't want to go out in the middle of, the country. And yet you'll get great college degrees, they're accredited, and you might spend 100 grand for 4 years. Now, if they give you 2/3 of that, college isn't that expensive.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's affordable and it's manageable. And to me, it's worth the investment. But yet when you're hearing, because Shannon and I went through this same scenario where she's like, hey, like, I'm looking at possibly wanting to do law. Like, I'm looking at getting my law degree. So we did some research. We're like, great. Okay, let's see how much it'll cost. To get accepted at the University of Utah, the law program is 2 years long, and it's 100 grand for 2 years. You're not allowed to work during those 2 years because the workload is so intense that you can't afford to get a job. So she had to ask herself, be like, okay, if I go and do this degree, do I have enough lifespan left to pay off this added debt income? And she's just like, no, I don't want to.
Right.
Because it's like, I make plenty of money with what I'm doing now, and I don't want this extra $100,000 of something that may get paid off in the long run.
Right.
And it's like, if she would have gotten half of it off, she would have been like, 50 grand I could probably do with. So it's like,
So it can be manageable. And now you have a number of these online universities that are fairly reasonable too.
I agree.
And so people need to look at those things.
I think probably the major universities are the schools that are going to get hit the hardest because they're not willing to back down on tuition.
They're so up the yin-yang government funded anyway.
Yes.
They get so much federal money that the federal government's just got to pull some of that and wake them up. Because, they're going to have to anyway because they're giving it all away free to illegal immigrants. So
Yes, yeah.
We won't,
we
we won't
could
get
talk
into that,
about
but
Because you and I have, I'm pretty sure we have because we haven't actually talked about a lot of that stuff, but I'm pretty sure you and I are on the same wavelengths with a lot of things on that topic. That'll get Maya super heated. Like, if you talk about that with her, she gets really upset because she has a friend that technically does not have legal citizenship here in the States, even though I believe she was born here. Her parents immigrated here illegally, then had her, but she let something lapse where she had citizenship till she was 18. Then she had to go reapply again. Well, she didn't reapply, and now she can go to school for free. Yeah, so I agree. I think there's a lot of things in terms of the major universities that have their problems, like politically, government, and all that stuff. And it's going to hurt them in the long run, that's for sure. Because I remember seeing a statement. University tuition prices have gone up 500% since the 1940s, while the average income has gone up 55% in that same time frame.
That's interesting.
And you're like, my goodness, what in the world is that caused from? So
I think the average income has to have gone up more than that, though, because I can remember people in the 50s, just from reading and studying, buy houses for like $7,000.
no, my parents here in Utah in 1984, when we moved here from California in 84, bought the house they live in now for $5,500 or $55,000.
Right.
I told my dad, I go, Dad,
Don't ever sell it.
you see that car that I'm driving out in your driveway? That was 54. So I'm driving your house right now.
Yep. And one's depreciating and the other one's appreciating.
Exactly.
Yep.
But so getting back to a little bit about your history, how I got to know you was through Salt Lake Lutheran High. Okay. How did you get in contact with Salt Lake Lutheran High?
Well, interesting. I had been a head high school coach at South Sevier High School.
Okay.
And some of the opponents we had were guys like Sean Bradley, that played in the NBA, was an All-American in high school.
Okay.
And Ryan Cuff played Division I, was an All-American in high school. So those were two players on two different teams in our region. They both cost me 5 wins a year.
Wow.
Oh,
I didn't know they played here in Utah.
Central Utah, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Emory High School, Sean Bradley, and Ryan Cuff at Richfield High School, who was our rival.
Interesting.
And so I'd been a head high school coach. I'd been an assistant coach at Utah Valley University and at Salt Lake Community College for a couple of years. I had started my business, and so I'd walked away from coaching, but I missed it. Missed the interaction with the athletes. So I was living up here in Salt Lake, and I decided I wanted to look at going into coaching, but I didn't want to be in the classroom again. There's no money teaching, at least not when you first start out.
Did you have to teach in South Sevier?
I was a full-time teacher.
Really? What did you teach?
I taught government, U.S. history, world history, economics,
Okay.
and PE. So
A
I
lot.
taught some honors and AP courses as well.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know you ever had to
So
teach.
you just thought I was another pretty face.
I
I
did,
was smart.
yeah. You did sweet talk everybody.
Yeah, so well, that's just philosophical. Because the rule is, if you don't ask the question, the answer's still no. You always
Honestly, there's another person that I work with. He's actually coming to teach class tomorrow. His name's David Lenton. He says the exact same thing. He goes, the answer's always no if you don't ask.
That's right.
You're right.
I actually emailed you 12 of my life rules. Did you get that?
I believe so, but I read the book. It's good.
Well, these are just rules I made up.
Oh, when did you do that?
I think last week.
I'll have to double check. What email did you send it to?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll check before you leave, though. But I don't remember getting one from you in the last week or so.
Okay.
But I'll check
If
for
not,
sure.
I'll get your email. I'll send it to you. But that's one of my life rules. If you don't ask the question, the answer's still no. First one is everything works if you do.
I like that.
So
It's true.
if you don't work, then
That won't
nothing
work
else is
either.
going to work either. You know.
That's really good.
So
Well, I'm going to get them
anyway.
printed. I'm going to put them some here in the dojo.
we should put those on some shirts, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I got involved. And then I got up here to Salt Lake. I was running my business for a few years. I missed coaching, and I thought, well, I don't want to go back in the classroom because I got to run my business full time.
Mm-hmm.
But I could coach in high school if I could be a paraprofessional. So I went to schools like Mount Vernon, Waterford, Salt Lake Lutheran High School. I watched their games, see what their teams were like. I talked to administrators and said, if you ever get an opening, let me know. So about 2 weeks into the basketball season beginning, the principal at Salt Lake Lutheran High School called and said, our coach just walked away. We need a new coach.
I don't even know who that was before you.
I don't either, but he wasn't very good. I know that.
They were awful.
Right. So
really bad.
Salt Lake Lutheran in 15 years of existence had never had a winning season before we got there.
Mm-hmm.
They'd never had a kid even make an all-region team, ever.
Nope.
And we had dozens of all-region, all-state kids. I had a dozen kids go play in college. So anyway, the principal called me, and he said, "Are you interested in the job? We need to replace our coach." He walked away. And I remember watching them play twice the year before. They had, I think, like 8 seniors on the team. So no juniors were playing any minutes of varsity. So I went and visited the principal, and I said, look, I know you're a religious school, but God himself is not going to help this team win this year. I'm just telling he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, but here's what I'll do. I'll take the job under 3 conditions. And he said, what is that? Number 1, I get a 3-year contract, no cut unless I do something immoral. Number 2, I don't want to hear about who you have in your school that has to be involved in the program. I pick my own coaches. Number 3, I get keys to the gym anytime it is not in use, so I can use it. If you put that in writing, then I'll come on board and coach. We won 1 game the first year.
I remember that, and it was to the team of what, the blind?
West Desert.
Was it West Desert? I thought it was the team of the blind and
the
deaf.
first win in the history of the school was the Salt Lake School of the Deaf and Blind.
That's right. Yeah.
That was
the
their
only
first
team.
win.
The only game this school won was against kids that can't hear and see. Like, go figure.
I guess we can put that on our podcast.
Yes. So West Desert was the first win.
West Desert was the first win in overtime. So we were losing games initially because we had kids that couldn't shoot, couldn't dribble, couldn't move. I mean, we were the bad news bears down a couple levels. And we weren't allowed to recruit. We never got to recruit. I recruited you, but you were in a feeder program for the Lutheran schools.
Yeah.
You're the first kid I really went after hard to recruit. And I was always glad I did that. But we were losing by 30, 35 points beginning of the year. And then at the end of the year to the same teams, we were losing by 3 to 5.
Really?
So
Man,
we made a lot of
huge
progress.
Turnaround.
And the biggest obstacle that we faced was their ability to believe they could win. And so when they would get down in the score, you could see their demeanor. Here we go again.
Yeah. Oh, it's just like normal.
And so you probably remember this philosophy of mine when we went to summer camps. We would go play against 5 and 6A teams.
Oh, we get
We're
our
a little
butts
1A school.
kicked every time.
Not every time, but most of the time. But before every game, I would say to my team, okay, when a 6-foot player from a 1A school plays against a 6-foot player from a 5A school, who wins? And almost always my players initially would all say, oh, the 5A player. I said, no, they're both 6 feet tall. The best player wins. Everybody bleeds.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And so they started to get tougher. They started to get better. And by our 3rd year, we were going to state playoffs every year pretty much. And so that's how I got to Salt Lake Lutheran.
Okay.
And after 3 years, they gave me a lifetime contract. Of course, I won't mention his name, but the 3rd principal under my tenure came in, did not like that I was a different religion. He didn't like that I had rules and guidelines for my kids. And he didn't like that a couple parents complained about their kids' playing time. So at the end of the season, when we were very successful, he said, need to visit with you. I said, okay. He says, you can resign or I have to fire you. And I said, hey, you're not going to get out of being a chicken. You have to fire me.
No.
And you're going to let me meet with my kids in the gym. If you don't, I'll call them all to my house. And I'm going to tell them what's happened. Because I did not quit on my kids. So I did not give them a letter of resignation.
Was this, without saying their name, was he the tall principal?
Started with the S.
Yes.
Right.
Really?
You have to guess what the letter S stands for.
Yes.
But it's got 4 letters.
Yes. Really, it was him.
Yep.
Because I always had good vibes from him, or at least my last.
He's not a bad person.
No, but I think he let the parents get to him.
Right.
There's a popular saying that one of the guys uses here. It's he let the prisoners rule the prison.
Right. Well, and the problem was, I mean, you know this about me, Mark. When I'm coaching, you're going to play the way we're supposed to play.
Yes.
Not the way you want to play.
No,
it's not about you.
Yes.
If you want to play an individual sport, then go play golf, Go play tennis. Go do track and field. But you're part of a team, so you have a role to play, and that's to help the team win.
And that was one of the big things that you really preached. And they don't understand it in the moment, but basics. Can you dribble? Can you shoot? Can you post up? Can you play defense? Can you play as a team? Basic stuff as in terms of the basketball realm, that when you take it out of the basketball realm, that's how you build any sort of successful life.
Right.
That's what we teach the kids here. It's basics. It's not like these fancy things you see on TV. Okay, so like a couple of years after I graduated, we had this group of kids that it was during that And One mixtape tour nonsense. Great to see on TV, flashy, blah, 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 but that's how they wanted to play. It's like, okay, you guys do realize they play on the street. They don't play in the arenas. They play on the street corners. There's a reason for that. It's because that style of basketball does not translate into arena basketball. There's only one player successfully that did that ever, Rafer Alston. He went and played in the NBA for about 5 or 6 seasons, but he didn't play like he was when he was playing on the street.
No, they groomed him into being part of a 12-man roster.
Yes.
Right.
And he became a very good part of that team as long as he stuck to the script, so to speak.
Right. He became a solid fundamental NBA player. And the reality is fundamentals make the game more fun when you do it right. And you look at even today's NBA, and what you'll see is you have a few players that have more latitude, right? More freedom than everybody else on the team. Like you take Edwards for Minneapolis. You take Jokic for Denver. You take Tatum for Boston, right? You take Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic in Dallas. Well, they trust them to make consistently high-level good decisions. And they do. But they also have not just the athleticism, but they have the sports skills to go with it. So Donovan Mitchell's a great example that played here in Utah. He's 6'1". They say he's 6'2", but he's 6'1". But he has a 6'10" wingspan. Well, I'm sorry, that is not most people.
Yes.
Most people, their wingspan is equal to their height, because I've measured tens of thousands of them over the years. So there's this combination of the mega stars are the guys that are the mega athletic guys. God was in a good mood the day they were born, right? But what I do know, like I worked with another kid at West Jordan, Shea Casteller, that played football, tough, hard-nosed, rip your head off kind of kid, my kind of kid, right? But he wasn't the most talented. He didn't make an all-region team. He had severe learning disabilities. He had ADHD and dyslexia. So the day he was born, God fell asleep a little bit. But I always tell people, but then God woke up before the birth was finished and put the meanest, most competitive, toughest drive in this kid that you could ever imagine. And he worked on that. And so all he needed was somebody to believe in him. When he knew someone believed in him, man, he put it into gear. But he was the kind of guy that if you knocked him down on the football field, he would get up in a hurry, get to the ball carrier in a really bad mood.
Yes.
And just pummel the guy.
Yeah, I love those people.
Yeah, and so he went on and played at Capital University in Ohio, Division III, and he got like 85% of his college paid for.
That's awesome.
So.
Do you know who that reminds me of? Is Ronnie.
Oh, I can tell you a story about Ronnie.
Let's do it.
So, and Jason.
Koza, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So Ronnie Humphreys and Jason Koza were both about 6 feet, 5'11".
Yeah, they weren't super tall, but they weren't short.
Right. They were both anorexic.
Oh God, they
were so thin.
Graduating high school, I think they weighed 110 pounds.
Oh, they were a little more than that, but
yeah.
But these two kids talk about fiery, competitive, and I could tell Ronnie, you're covering this guy, sick him, and he would just pull the hair out of his armpits.
If he didn't get punched, he didn't feel like he did his job well.
Oh wow!
He'd smile.
Yeah, that's how he was.
So their senior year, were you on that team when we played Green River?
No.
I think you were the year before you left.
Yes.
The next year we played Green River. We get to the semifinals in state tournament. And we're playing Green River. They're undefeated. They got 2 Division I kids.
So
on
hold
their
on,
team.
wait. Let's backtrack. I was on the team that went to state,
We had a bunch of teams go to state.
but we started going to, was it the following year that you played?
I think it was a year or 2 after you were, because Koza and Ronnie were not the same graduation year.
No, they were a year ahead of me.
So it was a year before.
Okay.
So we played Green River in the semifinals, and I came up with this because they had 2 Division I kids on their team. Nobody could get within 20 points of them.
Okay.
And so they had a 6'5" kid, and they had a 6'4" point guard.
Yes, I remember those guys.
Right, which was Stan Parsons, the coach's son, right? They both went and played D1. And so I came up with this crazy defense where we did a reverse triangle and 2. And the reverse triangle was 2 guys at the foul line corners, and then I had Nate.
Mm-hmm.
We put
I
Nate,
was on that team, yeah.
You're on that team.
Yeah, I
we
was
put
on.
Nate under the basket, but in front of the rim, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the 6'5" guy posted up, I had Nate behind him, who was 6'5", that played Division II.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have Koza fronting him and hounding him nonstop. And then I put Ronnie on the point guard. When he gave it up, he would deny him the ball the whole time.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, because I was on the other wing with Mike.
Right.
Yes.
And so we ended up losing, I think, by 6 or 8 points, but we probably missed 12 or 13 wide open threes, didn't we?
Yes, that was the game after we beat Dugway,
Right.
because nobody expected us to beat Dugway that year.
Right.
That's right. That was my junior year.
That was your junior year.
Yes.
And so I still remember that game. I remember Coach Parsons, after we lose a close game, coming up to me afterwards, shaking my hand, and he goes, "Coach, what the hell was that? I don't want to see that defense. Don't you talk to anybody till the tournament's over." He goes, "That's the best anybody's played us ever."
Yes.
And what's funny is you guys as a group, or at least the seniors, all came up. We were at Sizzler.
Mm-hmm.
They came up to myself and our coaches after the game, and they said, "Coach, we just wanted to tell you it's our fault. You had the right game plan. We thought you were nuts with that defense. If we'd hit our threes, we would have beat these guys.
Oh, wow.
We would have won state.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have. We would have.
That was a talented team.
That was a talented team.
That was a very
but you guys
talented
worked
team.
hard. We spent a lot of time in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So the rule is you pay your dues, you make the news.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That was probably the funnest I've ever had playing on a team, I would dare say, ever in my entire life.
No, we had a great team. And
Mm-hmm.
you were our glue guy, honestly, because you could do everything. You could post, you could be out on the perimeter, you just.
And we had the perfect mixture of like skill, but also like such a chip on your shoulder that if you looked at somebody wrong, like, I'm going to take your head off. And that was a lot of that fire that not too many teams had anymore after that.
Right. I think that wasn't that the year I sat like 3 of our starters for 2 weeks because they weren't pulling grades. They got below a C. My rule is you get below a C, you sit. So it cost us the region title because we lost a couple games while they were out. One we lost to, who was up on the hill? What school? Intermountain Christian.
Yes.
We lost to Intermountain Christian by 17 at their place. And their coach had a big mouth. He'd always come up to me and say something stupid. He goes, "You do really well with the talent you have. They're not very talented." So I would print it out really big. And when they came to our gym 4 weeks later, even walking into the gym, do you remember that?
Yep. Yes.
Your team's not very talented. You do really well for the players you have. It was in big poster size
was
all over our gym.
Everywhere over.
And he
across
walked
the
in
gym.
and he said to me before the game, he says, "Man, I can't say anything to you." And I think we crushed them by 25.
It was,
We rolled them.
it was such a good game. And now, granted, like when you think basketball, like everybody's like Duncan and this stuff, not with our team. We had maybe 1 or 2 people in our region that could really throw down. And one of them was on our team, Nate Morris.
Yep.
All right.
This kid was,
Athletic.
oh my gosh. And he was so smooth.
Silky smooth.
So smooth. He reminded me of Ray Allen.
Yeah, he played NCAA Division II.
Mm-hmm. He did for Northern Colorado for a while. And then,
Yep.
oh, shoot, he played for some other team as well.
I think it was Western. Might have been Western. But anyway, I can still remember the first game we played that I allowed him to push the ball in the fast break even though he was playing in the post because he just could handle the ball.
Okay.
And he grabbed the outlet, he pushed, and he just flew down the floor, just flow. And the middle opened up, and he went down the middle and just tomahawked it, and everybody just totally
lost their mind because that had never happened in that gym before.
Right.
At first, there was like a stunned silence, and then an eruption, and you're just like, "Okay, it's going to be that type of season."
Yep.
And you could just throw it up behind your head, and he would grab it and throw it down.
Oh, wow.
He was one of the funnest people to play with.
Right.
And we had that good mixture.
I think he's one of the ones I sat down to.
He was.
Right. Yep.
It was him. I think it was Koza. Ronnie was always good with grades. I think it was Andrew, too.
And Andrew, Bruce Schultz.
I think it was Andrew.
Andrew, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was such a pain in the ass.
Andrew was our point guard, and we played out at Wendover early in the year, but it was his junior year. This was his Andrew's junior year. And I was just upset with him, not angrily, not yelling, but I said, Andrew, you got to do things this way, right? Give them the ball when they're open. And so he's going to show me who's boss. And so, do you remember this?
Vaguely.
So he comes down the floor the next time, and he throws it 30 feet away from nobody. Oh, sorry, Coach, I missed him. Well, that didn't go over very well.
No.
Because he was in the locker room in about 30 seconds by himself.
Yeah, he was in the locker room.
I said, Andrew, come on. I said, nice pass. Now get your ass in the locker room. You're done for the night.
Yeah. Oh, man, he was something else. But yeah, him, Mike Williams. Yeah, that core five group of seniors.
Yeah, great group. Yep.
Man, they were such a good group. And then juniors, we only had me and Doris.
Right.
And then we had a good sophomore patch with Dustin Brown.
Right. Dustin. I could tell you so many stories. Dustin Brown, I didn't let my players talk trash, right?
Yes.
So Dustin is very smart. So we're playing his senior year, and I'm watching him, and he's talking the whole time to his opponents. And so I rotate him out. I says, what are you doing? I told you can't talk trash. He says, Coach, I'm not talking trash. I'm coaching him. I'm saying, hey, you missed. Get your elbow in. Your elbow's out. Right? Hey, you can make that. Just aim for the back of the rim. I mean, he's coaching the guy to get in his head. I said, okay, I can't argue with that. Go back in.
Oh, man, he got you on that one.
We have a couple people here that do that during sparring class.
Oh, yes.
Hey, I was open right here. You could get me.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah, Dustin's a good dude. He's still in Utah, and Ronnie sees him every now and then.
So when I get that gym built, what I'm going to do is once a year have a basketball reunion, not just with Salt Lake Lutheran, but
everybody
that I've trained over the years.
That'd be fun.
And we'll do a little 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 tournament for fun.
That'll be a good time.
Good
time. You heard Mike moved to Florida, right?
I heard that.
Yeah, he moved to Florida about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in town.
He can come back.
Yeah, he can. He can come back and visit. His wife won't let him move back.
So, remember Sam Janke?
Yes, I was talking about Sam.
Contacted me out of the blue probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Really? How is he doing?
He's doing good. He's doing well.
Good.
And he said, Coach, I've been thinking about you. I didn't know if you were still around. I said, Sam, I'll outlive you, man. I'm a Viking. My mom's from Norway. I'm healthy. I'm
there you go.
I'll outlive all you guys. And he goes, well, I really want to get together with you. So we went together and got to lunch. And but Sam, yeah, it was funny.
I felt bad for Sam. He had a rough couple of years there for a while.
He did, and I mean, I know part of the reason, but I don't want to say because it involved family stuff. But,
I mean, I mean, everybody knows he didn't deal with Eric's passing well either, and that just kind of spiraled out of control.
What was Eric's last name?
Moore.
Eric Moore.
Eric Moore.
Right. Eric, as a sophomore, was our starting point guard, and his girlfriend broke up with him. He didn't handle it well, and he took his own life, and his dad found him in the basement. It was tragic, just absolutely tragic. And
it was the day before school was supposed to start my freshman year.
Right. No, we were all just devastated because he was such a good kid.
He was a good kid.
God bless him. And he's, speaking of things like that, some religions go, oh, well, if you do that, you're going to hell. Well, I don't know. That's not the Savior I know.
Mm-hmm.
The Savior I know, the reason he's the judge of everybody is because he understands what's going on in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to take a lifetime of goodness and dispose of it. I don't believe that.
No,
And I always worry that I say this to friends and things, but I always say, if the Savior weren't that way, if he wasn't fair, then I don't want to go to heaven anyway. Just send me to hell. But I always worry about dying, meet the Savior, and going, you said like 500 times, just send me to hell. So
Like,
off you go.
I was just kidding. It's a joke. It was a joke.
Right.
No, I agree. I have a hard time with that dogmatic philosophy.
It's not correct. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere, that the scriptures teach that. Mm-hmm. I'm, a scriptorian as well, and religious, and there's nowhere that it teaches that.
I agree. Well, Coach, we're going to move on to our next section. It is the top 5.
Hey, hoopsters! It's your favorite bunny from outer space. We're slamming down the top 5 picks for this week's episode. Get ready to dunk into some serious fun.
Okay, top 5. Here we go.
So without you going into detail, I already have mine. I know what they are.
Okay.
But just tell me by name who your top 5 are.
The first name, Phil,
Okay.
Pat, George, Chuck, and Lenny. George Popovich. Or, I'm sorry, Greg. Not George.
Yeah.
Greg, not George. Greg.
Okay. Lenny Wilkins?
Yep.
Why?
Why? Because he played he was coaching for 35 seasons in the NBA.
Doesn't make him a great coach.
Well,
I like him. He was successful.
how can he not be good if he can last 35 seasons in the NBA?
Well, okay, so the way you can is your level of consistency. But you said great, not good coaches when you talked to me about this.
This is true.
So Lenny Wilkins was a very good coach. Okay, so was Don Nelson.
Yes.
But great is taking a good team and making them great, or taking an average team and making them good, or having a great team and not screwing them up.
This is true.
That's what great is.
Then I would probably only have a top 4.
Okay.
If that's the criteria, which I agree, then I could probably only think of 4.
All right.
Because if you look at top coaches online, Jerry Sloan's 3rd. Jerry Sloan never won a championship.
Jerry Sloan. So I've got a backup list, and Wilkins would be on that.
Okay.
Don Nelson would be on that. He coached a lot of years. Okay. So that's my second string of 5. But if you want my list in number 5 to number 1.
Sure. Let's go top to bottom.
Number 5 is Steve Kerr.
I almost put Steve Kerr on my list, and I should have, because what you said with taking a good team and not screwing them up.
Consistency. And, coaching is not just about, as you experience, hopefully with me, teaching great fundamentals, understanding the game so that your teams play with instructors that work for them, then taking talent you have and being able to win. So to me, winning is being able to compete for a title every year. That's being consistent at a high level. Not one year you're here, next year you're down here. It's always being able to compete.
Consistently every year.
Okay.
Yes.
And so number 5 for me is Steve Kerr. He's won 4 titles out of 6 times in the finals. All right. Number 4 is Greg Popovich.
Yes.
For San Antonio. And I'm not convinced that he's done winning titles yet.
I don't think, not with that Victor Wembanyama guy.
Yeah, when that guy puts on 12 more pounds, he's going to be nasty.
He's ridiculous.
And he'll get guys. I mean, this is the guy that drafted
Tim Duncan
and
Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili.
Right.
I hated the Spurs during that time frame.
Well, and who's playing now for the Clippers? What's his name?
Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard, yes.
Out of San Diego State. I mean, he took him out of these no-name schools that weren't.
Nobody heard of Kawhi until he was winning
Kawhi's
titles.
got like a 7'2" wingspan. I mean, he's just freak of nature.
He is.
Great athlete. So Popovich has that eye, right? And so I love that about him. Number 3 for me, this is hard for me to say because I played in Boston on the parquet floor, right? But Pat Riley.
Yes.
And Pat Riley won 5 titles. He won one as an assistant, one as another one as a player, and another one as an executive. That's a high level of consistency.
Yes.
So number 2, it's another one that's hard for me to say because he was a Lakers coach, was Phil Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, so he won 11 and 13 appearances in finals.
That's ridiculous.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Okay. He won, actually he won 11. So he won 11 as a coach. He won 2 as a player.
With the Knicks, right?
With the Knicks.
Okay.
Yep. Clyde Frazier and Dave DeBusschere and
What was
Willis
that?
Reed
Yes, Willis Reed.
and Bradley, who was a senator, right? That was a good group. Okay. Number 1 choice, and I'll explain why, is Red Auerbach.
I wonder why.
No, that's not why.
I know.
No. Red Auerbach put out a book years ago before his death called an MBA, Masters of Basketball Association, as opposed to a master's degree.
That's funny.
Okay, and he tells some amazing stories in there about what his philosophies were. So he said, now first let me tell you, he won 10, but he won 10, but he won 9 in a row.
He did win that 9 in a row.
So everybody talks about three-peats. Go flush that down the toilet.
He did that 3 times.
And then everybody says, well, the players weren't as good back then. Well, flush that down the toilet too, because they had 12 teams in the league. So there was a smaller pool. There were better players. And you can't tell me, you guys probably don't remember Nate Thurman, but he was as athletic as Shaquille O'Neal. Dominant guy, right? You had Wilt Chamberlain, best offensive player ever. He just didn't play long enough because he was busy mixing with women, right? Could have had a longer career.
Yep.
Right?
He could
you
have.
had Jerry West. You had Elgin Baylor. You had, who was probably the best triple-double guy in the history of the game,
Oscar Robertson.
Oscar Robertson.
Yes.
Right? I mean, these were phenomenal. They were phenomenal players. You had Gail Goodrich that played for the Lakers. I played one-on-one at his basketball camp with him
Wow.
in front of everybody. And if I'd been sitting there 45 minutes after running around, I probably would have beat him. I lost 7-5, and he was pissed that I was that close to him.
That's funny.
I was a freshman in college at a junior college out there. But I'd been sitting there 45 minutes, and he'd been shooting and doing stuff. Like,
He came out cold.
I came out ice cold. So anyway, Phil Jackson's number 2.
Yes.
Red Auerbach, for a multitude of reasons, is associated with 16 NBA titles, either as a coach or an executive. So here's some things that he said in his book. He said every year that they won the championship, the first thing he would do is go look at what number 2 and number 3 had that could hurt his team, and he would go out and recruit that.
Interesting.
Brilliant.
That is that's brilliant.
Right? And he also was the man that developed the whole idea of the 6-man in basketball.
He got that into play.
He's the one that brought that into play.
Interesting. I did not know that.
So there was a guy playing for St. Louis, Macaulay, that had been an NBA All-Star, but he was at the end of his career. And he was a piece that Auerbach wanted to make sure they were going to win again. So he came up with the 6-man idea. And he said, look, we're going to reinvent something in basketball. Your name's going to be attached to this throughout history. It's a pretty good sales job.
That is a dang good sales job.
Well, now they have the 6-man of the year award.
This is true.
That's Red Auerbach.
Dang.
He's also the first one to bring in a black player into the league.
Okay.
He's also the first one to hire a black coach as an executive.
Who was that?
Bill Russell.
That's right. Bill Russell did coach for the Celtics for a while, didn't he?
He won a championship as a player coach.
I didn't know he did.
1969.
Wow.
So that's my list. But Auerbach also did it with one team.
He did do it with one team.
Same amount of championships. He did it with one team. That's impressive.
You don't see that much anymore.
And that was in a generation when you couldn't buy players. So I still remember that, and this is, we won't get into who the greatest player is of all time. We can get into that another time.
I've got something for you before we're done with Stephen's list. Just a fun little, you're going to put your own 1 through 6 roster.
Okay.
No, I'll tell you what mine was because we did it like a couple months ago. Like, I want to ask him what his is.
For players?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so Auerbach knows he's in trouble one year because here is Bill Russell. They just won the championship. Chamberlain's the first guy in the history of professional sports to make 6 figures, not 7 figures. That was Magic Johnson, right? 6 figures, right? I still remember when Magic got a 25-year contract for $25 million, $1 million a year. But that's ridiculous. Now these guys are making $40 million a year. It's insane.
Without even proving anything yet.
Right. But anyway, Auerbach knows he's in trouble. He's got to have his meeting because Russell's contract is up. Chamberlain just gets a $100,000 contract. This is in the 60s. This is like a lot of money, right? Russell sits down. He goes, okay, Bill, let's just get to it. What do you want? I know you want a raise. And Russell goes like this, and he holds up one finger. It was not his middle finger, by the way, because we're on radio. He holds up one. And Auerbach says, what is that? What is that supposed to mean? He says, I want $1 more than Chamberlain, 100,001. So everybody knows who the best player in the world is.
That's funny.
So what's going to get more publicity and be remembered?
The $1 more.
The $1 more.
Yeah. He could have asked for so much more and it would have been irrelevant.
He could have asked for double that.
But if he said $1 more, people will remember that $1.
Yeah, Auerbach was brilliant. He was a fundamentalist. And you can't argue with the fact that he did what he did. He won 10 in a row. He won them in the same place.
He did win them in the same place. Yep.
And then he was involved with 6 other titles in his tenure as the executive, the general manager for the Celtics. So
a good show that I just recently got done watching. Oh, it's Showtime. It's about when Jerry Buss took over the Lakers.
Right.
And his feud with Red Auerbach and the Celtics-Laker feud.
Right.
It's pretty interesting. And it's like, oh my gosh, the way they ran that first season that Jerry Buss owned the team, dude, oh my God. Like, I feel like I lost a life of my life watching it. Like, I could only imagine going through it. Like, their accounting was a mess. They didn't have the funding for anything, and they happened to pull it out, and
wow,
everything worked out okay.
Yeah, they didn't beat the Celtics ever until the 80s.
No, they didn't. Nobody beat the Celtics.
Nobody. Well, no, I mean they won 10 in a row.
And that was they
In fact,
dominated.
Russell's last year, Auerbach knew that Russell mentally was tired. This is how brilliant he was as a coach, right? So he resigns as a coach, and he makes Bill Russell the first black coach in the history of the league. And he figures it'll give him enough motivation as a player coach to carry the flag one more time. So they get to, I think it's Game 7 or Game 6 in LA. I think it was Game 7 in LA. And Buss has put up all these balloons, all this stuff to celebrate their championship because they're going to be in LA. And I still remember with like less than a minute left, Don Nelson takes a shot from the high post, hits the back of the rim, bounces up, comes through the net. And they didn't, needless to say, they didn't celebrate in LA.
No, probably did not.
No.
But Stephen, who you got on your list?
Well, I got quite a few. I'm not as knowledgeable as the other two people on this show right now, but when it comes to coaching, I did see that Red Auerbach loves his cigars. And,
Yes.
Does the book go into anything about that?
He did it. Now you wouldn't be allowed to smoke.
I know,
but he did it to taunt his opponents without using words.
Yeah, that was.
So the game was over when he lit the cigar.
Yeah, he's like, oh, we're done here.
Yeah.
I looking this up. Chuck Daly's one. Being able to control the strong personalities was what stood out to me.
That bad boy era was crazy.
Yeah, and I know this is on your second string, but Don Nelson, the godfather of small ball, being able to change it from the bigger players to the smaller players. That was what stood out for me. He also brought in Dallas Maverick. He was on the Dallas Mavericks, developing Dirk Nowitzki into a star player there. Let's see, what else do I have? Jerry Sloan, obviously, as making the Utah Jazz somewhat perennial, and then that pick and roll offense right there, and then Larry Brown, only coach to win both an NCAA and NBA title.
Interesting.
I think he won an ABA one also.
There we go.
It could have been.
And let's see, last one.
I like Larry Brown. That's a good one.
I'll have to go with Popovich as well.
Popovich.
It's a good list.
That is a good list.
These are all excellent coaches. One thing I forgot to mention about Arbeck is 2 of his players were instrumental in winning championships as coaches. So Russell went 2 for 2, and Tommy Heinsohn went 2 for 2 in the 70s.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
So that's a good pedigree.
Okay, so getting back to what I was going to tell you earlier, you have your starting 5, and then you got a bench player. If you could build your team, specifically you, that you'd be like, okay, this is my team of guys that I'm going to go to war with, and we're going to dominate everybody. Who you got on your team? Who you got for your point guard?
Stockton.
Okay, I had Magic. Who do you got for your shooting guard?
You won't believe this, Pete Maravich.
Pete, really? I thought he would be more your point guard.
No, he could play the 2, the 3, or the 1.
I got Jordan.
You can't argue with Jordan. I just put Maravich because you're talking about shooting, and you have to have 50 attempts minimum. It's 50 or 150, but the leading field goal 3-point shooting percentage leader in the history of the NBA is Pete Maravich.
Yes.
You know what percentage? You want to guess?
It
If
was.
you get this right, I'll buy you lunch.
It was like 85, right?
No, 66%.
Okay.
That means 2 out of 3 times he's burying a 3.
Exactly. And this is a dude in college at LSU, broke every scoring record without a 3-point line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he averaged 43.2 for his career, 3 years, and they knew he was coming. And he was the guy on the team, period, at LSU. And Dale Brown, who was his coach, went back and tracked every shot he took in college without the 3-point line, measured the shots, said if they'd had a 3-point line, he would average 53 a game.
Jeez. That's crazy. Okay, so who you got for your small forward?
Jordan.
I'd had Chuck. Charles Barkley.
You have reached the end of this part of our interview. You will be able to hear more on our next episode. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.